Good morning and welcome to our monthly CHI webinar. Today we're in conversation with 3 seasoned pre-apprenticeship grantees for Insights from the Innovators, which is the first in a series that we're conducting this spring. And please actually mark your calendars for the second installment, which is next Thursday, April 3rd, when we'll be hearing from San Joaquin Delta College's Registered Apprenticeship Nursing Program. They're an original CHI grantee, and they'll be sharing lessons learned. But during today's webinar, I want to encourage everyone to chat in your questions using the chat pod. Please chat in any questions for the presenters, and we'll get to them at the end of the panel. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's guests. We first have Kathy Hart. She's the Dean, Palmdale Center and Extended Learning at Antelope Valley College. We have Chris Almeida. He's the Program Director for the Pre-Apprenticeship Construction Program. And Emiliano Sanchez. He is the coordinator of the Skilled Trades Apprenticeship Program and CTE at the Oakland Unified School District. So let's just start with if each of you could tell us a little bit about your apprenticeship program and what problem it solves. Kathy?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Well, we're doing a pre-apprenticeship program for the building and construction trades. So we are running the multi-craft core curriculum, or the MC3 program. And our partners are the LA Orange County Building and Construction Trades Unions, along with our local America's Job Centers, which include Goodwill Industries and Jewish Vocational Services. And the partnership sort of built out of a need for, a growing need in our area for construction trade apprentices. And there's a lot of activity expected to be blossoming in this area in the near term. And the unions really approached us about doing this program, and we were very eager to get involved. So that's how we came about.
Terrific. And if you can tell us a little bit more about your, I know there's a next slide here with some happy-looking graduates.
Actually, we can back up to the previous slide. One of the things that we did right off the bat was create some marketing materials, and this is just a sort of a view of one of our flyers that advertised about the program. Because our partners were with the job centers, we sort of had built-in recruiting. They were really actively seeking those who would do well in a program like this, and so they were really our recruiting partners. And so, although we created this marketing piece at the beginning, in the end, we created demand through the job centers, and we really didn't need to do too much in the way of advertising. It was really by word of mouth, and we were able to put through so far about 200 students through our program. So our trainees participated for 8 weeks, 5 days a week, about 4 hours a day, and they got all kinds of classroom training in addition to some hands-on, some OSHA, some hazmat, CPR, and first aid. And we were also able to bring in speakers from the trades to speak to students about the various trades, expose them to those, and do some field trips to training centers down in Los Angeles where they could get sort of a firsthand view of what an apprenticeship training program really looks like.
That's terrific. What types of folks did you have in your pre-apprenticeship program?
That's a great question. You know, we really had a variety of age ranges, as well as male and female students. And the other part of our program that was unique was that we were able to take it up to a Department of Corrections fire camp up in our local hills here, and bring it to short-term incarcerated students who were looking for opportunities once they get out. And if you forward to the next slide, you can see some of our students from the local fire camp. We like to get with our students on the last day of class to present certificates and take some photos. But the photo in the bottom there with the tiger, these incarcerated students actually had an opportunity to go off-site and do some hands-on work at a popular, it's called the feline, what do they call it? The Roseman Feline Compound. It's a rescue ranch where they have large cats and other kinds of animals, and so the feline compound had a need for some platforms to be built for their tigers, and so the inmates actually went out there and practiced some of their hands-on skills, actually building some wooden platforms for the tigers. So it was an interesting arrangement, and students really got some true hands-on experience.
Thank you, Kathy. I believe you're the only presenter with a tiger in the photos. Okay, let's turn to Chris Almeida. Why don't you also tell us a little bit about your pre-apprenticeship program and also what kind of problem you were solving by starting this program?
Good morning. We were approached by our Workforce Investment Board and several of our contractors, our apprenticeship advisory group, to participate in this particular grant. And when we did, we have about 34 industry representatives from industry as well as from our unions. And when we started this program, we made sure that we would address adults and high school students. So we use the BITA program, which comes from the California Home Building Foundation. It's a program that is approved by DAS for pre-apprenticeship, and we just happen to be using that in the Washington School District for this particular effort. And we also work closely with the Northern California Construction Training Program. So we have two approaches. Our morning session is with our adults. The afternoon is with our actual high school students. The curriculum is the same. The intensity is a little different. The work-based learning experiences are different. If I may take us to our adults, when we started this program, we were approached by a company called Clark Pacific. Clark Pacific in Northern California is a company that built the 49er Stadium. They did all the concrete work. They did all the concrete work for the King's new stadium in Sacramento, and doing extensive work with hospitals, including Stanford. So there's a lot of work. They needed 200 individuals. So we met with their lead person, and they needed people right away. So we revised our curriculum with them for a 3-week program the first summer we started. And we placed 20 adults right away after that 3-week program with this modified curriculum, OSHA certification, CPR, first aid, and then turn it over to them to finish up the training on the job. Of those first 20 that started, 15 are still there. The other 5 are working in other, like with the laborers, the carpenters, the pipe fitters, and the iron workers. So they move on into other available jobs and apprenticeship programs. The high school students meet in the afternoon, and luckily I'm very fortunate to have a teacher that can address the needs of both populations. The high school program, we spend a lot of time with tools. Some of our young people probably don't know the difference between a flathead and a Phillips screwdriver. So it's it's the trend we have right now with our young people. They're more interested in their computers. And so we spent a lot of time with them, got a lot of hands-on experiences, and tremendous work-based learning. Our advisory group mentors those individuals. So they actually come on site, work with the young people, get them interested in not only staying in school, but participating in the construction industry. We have internships during the summer, and they're placed in a variety of locations throughout the Sacramento County and Yolo County area with, again, with support from our industry advisory group. Most of our students that want to continue with construction, we pre-arranged with our articulation agreement and dual enrollment setup for the high school students to go to Consumers River College, which is part of our Los Rios Community College District. And so they're able to move there and be very, it's a nice transition for them. The instructor, the main instructor from that college, comes out and visits on a regular basis with those students. So they get to know each other, and it's an easy transition. Our major challenge today for the high school students is transportation. That's always kind of an issue, but we're resolving it slowly. My adults, it's kind of a sensitive one, but my adults have a hard time understanding random drug testing. So when they exit with me before they go to work. My teacher's too nice. And so I tell them the facts about random drug testing, and we go through that, and believe me, I hear every story you can imagine. And I don't disagree with them, but I'm telling them this is the way it is in construction. And if you want to work, this is something you have to be concerned about. So of the 15 that are still over at Clark Pacific and others that are in that have entered since then, they have passed random drug testing, and I'm very pleased. I've gone out there, and it's really nice to see smiles. They're productive, they're earning a wage, and they're taking care of their families, and I like that a lot. So that's my biggest challenge for my adults, just that one aspect.
Thank you so much for sharing that information, and you really show also really the people aspect as you're talking about your program and the relationships that you're building with participants. Let's turn to Emiliano. And Emiliano, if you could also tell us a little bit about your program. Eduardo's catching up here with the slides.
Okay. Good morning. So again, I'm Emiliano Sanchez. So my challenge has already been explained. It's like we don't teach what we used to call vocational ed in school. And so I guess to get us all going, I was invited to a PLA meeting prior to us having this grant, PLA Project Labor Agreement. Actually, let me start with the name of it. We're the Oakland Unified School District Skilled Trade Pre-Apprenticeship programs. So we have 2 programs now that didn't prior exist before our grant. I was invited to a PLA meeting, and the council said to me, we have a certain situation. It's like we have a talent shortage in skilled trades, and we don't teach it. So I don't know if you can really understand our setting. And I said, can I understand it? I said, I'm the director of trades and apprenticeship with a school district that has no infrastructure to support this. So yes, you're asking me to bring about change, and I need partnerships in order to make this happen. And so that was basically the beginning of what the pre-apprenticeship program started. There were some union members there, and then I started some dialogue with them just to start getting some awareness. We know that, so the problem we're trying to address is, ours is a strictly high school program, so I'd love to speak with Chris later on. And so we had to embed it within our programs that already exist. Our schools are wall-to-wall pathway, but as you know, in the last 25 to 30 years, anything that's been vocational has been gutted. And so everything has been, it's a college for all mentality, but it's more like college or nothing mentality. We're preparing our students to go into college, and we're stripping out any program that has any manual dexterities, manual technologies components built in. So the reason we picked the trades is because we have an aging workforce. So we have that. We have the lack of education in our school systems and preparations for it. And then we also have a booming economy. And so Oakland Unified, just like all the other districts across the state and the country, gutted the program. So now we're suffering from a lack of talent, and it's just getting progressively worse. So if you look at slide number 1, Mark Breslin did a study on 1,300 industry leaders, and you can see the top 5 they're either high school or home related. And so that was our focus, is how do we address that? And so that's where my focus was. Like those are the things that with a change in programming, we could actually address. Next to it, you have those in education or work-based learning continuum. And so people were telling me, what are we going to do to prepare our youth to enter these fields? And I'm like, you can't prepare them unless they know they actually exist. So my first 2 years, it was just built out a lot of career exploration and career exploration, awareness and exploration. We can't prepare them from something they don't know exists and whether they want to do it or not. I was able to get 2 programs going at 2 different high schools where they're contrary to the other ones. It's a whole school year, because we only have them an hour to an hour and a half every day or every other day. And so we're building out the skills. We have them for a longer time, but cumulatively, it's about the same time as the regular program. And so our students will go through the program. We're building in things. Those students get a more intense experience where they're learning all the technology and all the, the tools and the skills to get in. So matter of fact, we just got our first direct entry into the skilled trades in the last 25, 30 years. And it's only one, but it's one. There was nothing before. Now we have 2 programs that hopefully can start feeding the pipeline to it. So if you go to the next slide, you will see this has been the work. The work has been to educate our youth and our educators, because anybody who's in education right now, unless they look like me, a little gray and a little bald, they don't know anything about vocational programs. And so I need to educate the students, the teachers, and the counselors. So that has been my big focus. And so in the last 3 years, these are multiple things that we've been doing in order to bring out the awareness and the exploration. And the first year I spent just knocking doors and trying to get students in to these exposures before I had the program. After we were able to kick off with the grant, we've been able to ramp it up because now more individuals are involved. And I was able to have the professional development. I was actually put on the district calendar for two events, one per year the last couple of years, so that I'm not the only one going out to the different sites. There's 2 sites that I'm working with closely, but if this is to grow legs, it needs to go expand out to other schools. And so we've been doing everything from the awareness component to the professional development component. What the grant had us do, if you take it to the 3rd slide, we were able to take back spaces and build out spaces to actually build it. So the top 3 pictures, if you look at the slides, we were able to enhance it. They had a program, but it wasn't aligned to any of the trades. We were teaching them to do work, and then these were just turned out to be skills that they would use. Now we're actually aligning it in with the trades, and so the carpenters are coming in, or we're going to the carpenters, bringing in the electricians. We're trying to do at least 1 career exploration visit per marking period, and we're also bringing in plenty of guest speakers and the possibilities of summer internship. The bottom 3 pictures, we took back a shop at Skyline High School. They did away with all the shops at Skyline. And so that classroom there was actually a class for leadership, and there was plenty of other things in there, but nothing that would teach them what these tools can teach there. So we basically repurposed the room. We took back what was originally a shop, and we had to modernize it, of course, because there are new technologies out there that our students need to be aware of. So if you can see on the right, we have a laser cutter. We have our traditional equipment in the middle with a table saw, a chop saw, a drill press. What I didn't get was a picture of a full full-size CNC router. So again, it's about preparing these students to enter the skilled trades with all the aspects, whether they're going to go into cabinetry work or whether they're going to electricians or whether they're going to carpenters or the laborers or the roofers. So that's why my partnership is expansive. It includes the buildings and trades. We are using the MC3 as a foundation. And we also are in connection with the Bay Area Apprenticeship Coordinators Association, BACA for short. And then the different apprenticeship coordinators throughout the district. So given we were able to upgrade these 2 rooms, that's where we were able to get our 2 pre-apprenticeship programs. And so right now, some of our outcomes have been, so if you go to the last slide, our summer internships, we've been able to have, even though we're a pre-apprenticeship program, we're a high school pre-apprenticeship program. So what I did is in conjunction with Cypress Mandela Training Center, which is an adult pre-apprenticeship program, we coordinated with them, and they take our students that are interested, and they do a 5-week intro to construction boot camp. And so they're working alongside, they're learning alongside adults. And so they get a 5-week experience. Our first cohort was 11 students. Our second is 14. We're on the work right now. We're hoping to get possibly 30 this year. I also partnered with BART. And so we've been able to get 12 to 14 students in the maintenance yard. So again, we're building up these technologies, and first priority are from the ones from our apprenticeship program. And PG&E has been a great supporter also. And if you look at the slide at the right, I think this tells the story. If you look at the top row, this is pre the California Apprenticeship Initiative grant. We had some construction classes going on at Fremont High School, but we had none going on at Skyline. The first year of the grant, we ramped up the number of classes at Fremont, and we had 1 at Skyline. Again, we were working it in because we were building the ship. Literally, we were building the ship while we were going through water. We didn't have a room. He was teaching that 1 class out of a regular classroom. Can you imagine? He didn't have the power tools, but I got him some of the basic. He had hand saws. He had hammers. I buying him 2x4s, things that he could come in, and he had horses there. So he would take the students right outside his classroom. And now this year, you can see we grew again. And Fremont, we added some more classes to it, including dual enrollment courses. And we went to a full day for our instructor there at Skyline. So we went basically from 0 to 5 classes that are construction related. So we're building a foundation to go forward. And I think that's the big thing, that we know that we're going to need a few more years. It needs to be, in order to grow some legs, it needs to be sustainable for 5 years. And that's what we're working on.
Thank you, Emiliano. It's clear that you've needed your magic wand and your partner's magic wands to build this up from the ground. And as you were speaking, you were talking about partners, and I want to focus on that next. And you really shared how you really kind of knocked on doors and got different kinds of partners involved, from BART, industry, etc. And Kathy, I wanted to go back to you because you had mentioned that now you have a really strong relationship with your American Job Center, your local, One Stop. But how did you build that relationship? They probably didn't know you to begin with, or maybe they did. And how do you maintain that relationship?
Well, good question. Again, and our partnership with the unions, again, was born out of really the building and construction trades unions in our area in LA County are really starting to build those community workforce agreements with local government agencies and even with the college district itself. So we were entering into an agreement with them, and that presented a perfect opportunity then for the creation of apprenticeship jobs and ultimately pre-apprenticeship to feed into that. We had existing relationships already with our job center, so that was sort of a natural fit. It was easy to turn to them and say, hey, we need your help. We want to get students into this program. We want to reach out to those that are perhaps chronically unemployed, underemployed, those who are seeking job changes, et cetera. This would be the core of our launch. And then again, we wrote it into our grant to be able to take the program up to incarcerated students as well, to offer them some opportunity. Our college is very involved in prison education. I run the prison education program for AVC, so that was a natural fit as well. We didn't have any fear going into this because, again, we sort of had a natural fit of everything together, because we decided to run this pre-apprenticeship program in the not-for-credit space, we had the flexibility and the latitude to take this pre-existing MC3 curriculum and run with it. I don't have to run it through an academic senate for approval and that kind of thing. We could basically just hit the ground running. And then, we had to have a little bit of blind faith, especially with our union partners here in the Valley, that, once we put these students through the program, that there would be, in fact, be job opportunities for them. That's been a little slow, I have to say. We're still, after a year and a half into this venture, we're not seeing the placement of students as rapidly as we would have hoped. But we're hoping that's quickly going to turn around as some of these construction jobs are picking up, our own included, on our own campus. The partnerships were there, and we just said, hey, this is a good fit. We can do this, and we went from there.
Terrific. Thanks, Kathy. It sounds like not only were you and your partners kind of fearless, you just dove right in. And I was wondering, Chris,
yes.
Did you have to kind of build partnerships from the ground? How did you, and if so, how did you build them? Did you have to allay any fears with any of your partners?
I have close relationships with our apprenticeship schools here in our area. So we have a plumbers, electrician, sheet metal, carpenters, and so those people I've known for years, and they're colleagues, and we take our high school kids to those schools so they can see, and what they see is what the same tools and equipment that they're working with, and they like that. They also see other opportunities, like with the plumbers. They see things that they don't normally see in our particular facility. But our partners are eager to get those high school students into those apprenticeship schools, and we're just blessed to have those schools in our community. For our adults, unfortunately, because in the north we've had serious fire issues, we can't get enough construction people right now to get out and get the job that's needed to be completed in Paradise, Santa Rosa. There are so many jobs right now, we just can't fill them. And I wish I had more adults that could come through our program. There are some that come in and decide that's not for them, and that's okay. That's all right. We want people to stay in the construction industry in some facet as they leave us. But our partners, I'll be honest with you, are just friends I've known for a lot of years, and I guess I'm fortunate that in my past life I sat on the apprenticeship council for 10 years, so I got the chance to know a lot of them.
Thanks, Chris. So it sounds like, there's a mixture here. All of you, of course, know your community and know specific people and have maintained those relationships. Of course, Emiliano, you've already spoken about, even though you've had those relationships, you still had to knock on doors because there wasn't any existing kind of architecture to build that kind of program. And so I was wondering, I'm hearing, there's different need also You know, Chris, you're describing there's really not enough workers. Kathy, it's a little slow to get folks jobs. So I was wondering, and Emiliano, of course, you shared the very exciting news that one high school student went directly to become an apprentice as a journey worker. What do you see as the challenges, and also, Emiliano, what do you see as the challenges to having students go directly into apprenticeships, and you know, briefly on the challenges, but more on what you think the solutions might be for that?
Well, of course, one challenge is just this whole stigma of anything that's blue collar, anything that's hands-on. Everybody's talking about college. So I've been working with, I'm an educator. I've been working with the school district for 28 years. Prior to this, I was a math teacher and then administrator, assistant principal, and principal. So I know the background. And so part of that, I've been trying to erode over the last 10 years. I've only had this position for 4, but we were trying to just instill the fact that the skilled trades and the vocational programs, they're not your second-class careers, and that's been the big push that we've been working on trying to just elevate them. So those were.
Who do you feel? Sorry, Emiliano. Who do you feel you have to convince? Is it parents?
Well, I mean, it's on both sides. First, it's on educators in general, because they do not know they know very little about the apprenticeship program. And then the other one is the parents. They've been listening to us, for the last 20 years saying, if you got to be successful, you have to go to college. And that translates to a 4-year university. It doesn't translate to a post-secondary options, which are the skilled trades, which are your community colleges. All they hear is college. And so we need to start working on that. One of the problems that we have is the colleges have a system and a relationship with the schools. So the student knows pretty much in March whether they're accepted or not. With the skilled trades, if you're going in there, you have to be 18. You have to have, for most of them, you have to have high school diploma. And so it's very difficult to get any direct entry. And they all have different points of entry. So as one of the things I've been working on is just teaching everybody how to apply to be an electrician, and how that's different than a plumber and steam fitter, and how that's different with a carpenter. So one thing that I've been working with BACA and working with the buildings and trades is, like, if we could get a one-pager that highlights your high-level trades and how to apply. Because right now, basically, there's a website, but our students, I mean, if you have to maneuver it, we're losing some in translation. So if we had a one-pager that says, if you want to be a carpenter, you should know. And if you want to be an electrician, these are important dates. If you want to be a plumber and steam fitter, and here's some test prep, and giving them all this, because right now our educators don't have that. If we could give it to our educators, then they can in turn then give it to the students and lead them through it. And again, the big thing is making sure that all these programs are lifted up at the same time as we're talking about college. They need to be on the same level.
Thanks, Emiliano. And, it's really clear, and of course, other programs that are here on the line in this webinar understand that all these different partners and different people speak different languages about, and I don't mean actual languages, but just what is pre-apprenticeship, and how will that serve my child and my students.
Right.
And it sounds like you guys have really been trying to bridge this kind of language divide and process divide. What I was wondering is, once you have your apprentices or pre-apprentices in your program, Kathy, how do you retain them in your program?
We learned in our first cohort, we put 10 cohorts through now. Obviously, with incarcerated students, you have a captive audience, so we have no problem with retention there. They're very happy to be doing a program like that. But on a regular campus, we learned from the first cohort that we needed to gain commitment from the students right from the beginning. So we created sort of a one-page agreement between them and the college that they were going to be committed, they were going to be on time, and it's kind of sort of a code of ethics, but also sort of a code of commitment. And one of the things that we established right off the bat was attendance is imperative. Being here on time is not only imperative for this program, but it's imperative when you're working in the trades. If you're not on the job at the time that you're expected to be on the job, within 15 minutes you're replaced by another worker and you may be out of a program. So we made an impression on students right from the beginning that their attendance was going to be critical. And so we said, hey, if you're tardy 3 times, that's going to count as an absence. And if you're absent 3 times, you know what? There's a line of students waiting to get into this program, and we're going to have to replace you. And maybe you can catch it the next time around when your schedule is more free or you have less barriers to getting to class. So part of that was also accomplished in the pre-screening. Obviously, when the job center folks were working with candidates, pre-screening candidates, we had to make sure that they had some reliable form of transportation to get to the college, and that they were in fact ready to participate in a 5-day-a-week program. And so in spite of that, I can say we still had a little bit of attrition, but not a whole lot. So we tackled it after that. The first cohort was like, they're dropping like flies in the first couple of weeks, and for various reasons, just personal reasons, transportation, things that they didn't kind of get it, that this is a commitment, and this is a commitment not only to a class but to a career. And if you can't meet those requirements, then this isn't the career for you. So.
Thanks, Kathy. What about for you, Chris? How are you retaining the pre-apprentices in your program? What kinds of support do you provide?
I would echo what Kathy has shared.
Okay. We
lock our door at 7 a.m. And so you're either in that class or you're not. And attendance is a critical thing. Going to a work site and not show up, and it reflects back on us, and that's critical. So they understand quickly they better be there at 6:45 every morning for our adults. I would like to share a service or assistance. Our 18-year-old kid, and they're really interested in one of our apprenticeship schools, plumbers, electrician, sheet metal electricians, etc. We're very fortunate because they're right in our geographical area. So when we do an orientation, that student must bring one of their parents with them, because the parents are the ones that have to be sold, not the kid. And if the parents aren't sold that this is a good way, it's going to be hard for that young person to not go down the path like Emilio is describing. They're going to end up in college and probably dropping out later on. But we make sure that there's a parent. Second, when they get into that school, in order to assist them, the apprenticeship school gives them a mentor for the first year or for the first 4 periods, of apprenticeship, so that they have somebody to ask questions to, somebody to go to when they don't understand. And at 18, it's tough. They don't know all the rules and protocol and so forth. So the mentoring has helped the retention once they get there. But to get in, I've got to have a parent there. Otherwise, I have not been very successful.
Yeah, I hear you. And but it sounds like all of your programs are providing support and understanding on one side that pre-apprentices need to make a commitment, and they know it up front, and at the same time being realistic that these are often young folks, sometimes not, but young folks who need extra support to be able to stay in the programs. So let's take a kind of a bigger view here, and I was wondering if each of you could basically share your lessons learned so far. It sounds like, you know, we've heard some. For example, Kathy, you've talked about just retaining folks, right? And the lessons you've learned in that particular kind of area. And Kathy, maybe if you could share more about just all the lessons that your program has learned now that you, as you said, had 10 cohorts go through.
Right. Well, a lot of lessons learned. Some of it was really just to kind of keep things simple. You know, I think we had grander ideas of how this program would look when the grant was written. I actually stepped in after the original grant writers and was handed the task of executing what was sort of in the head of other folks. So, you know, my job was sort of to evaluate where are we today and what is our capacity to build this program and grow it. And maybe that's starting small. I'm amazed to see, for example, Emiliano's wonderful classrooms, and we didn't have that kind of classroom space, although we have regular labs here on our main campus. We were starting the program over at our satellite campus in Palmdale, where I run the center here. And so, you know, we started with a big toolbox and a dirt field outside and some rakes and some gloves and some, you know, equipment that students could actually just get out there and, you know, learn to stack a pile of bricks or, you know, do that kind of thing. So not a lot of resources up front, but we were able to take students into our labs on a field trip kind of basis. So we used our electrical lab, our welding lab, and our HVAC on Fridays when regular classes weren't in session. And we actually got some of our faculty members to volunteer their time to, you know, take 4 hours and walk students through what's it like to be an electrician, what's it like to be a welder. They got to play on a virtual welding machine that we have for our regular welding students, and they got really good information from our HVAC instructor on what careers in that field look like. And so we just had to improvise as we went along. And fortunately, we had really good instructors who were retired from the trade. So they brought a lot of their own personal stories, their own personal ideas about how, you know, what they would want to translate to someone going into the trade. And the trades were very, you know, our partners with the trade unions were very, you know, they're kind of relaxed as well. They were telling us, hey, they don't have to know everything coming to our doors, but they have to know some basic things. Your job is to expose them to opportunities in our industry. Our job is to take those pre-screened individuals and then bring them into an apprenticeship program and give them the real training. So that kind of freed us up to really focus on helping students identify what career path they might want to choose, where they'd like to see themselves, and then give them some basic skills, you know, using hands-on tools, basic ethics even on the job that they could apply then to an apprenticeship program.
Thanks, Kathy. Emiliano, what about for you, your lessons learned so far?
Just the importance of relationships, and I think one of the lessons would be to have someone specific to be your sounding board when you're doing things out there. It's like that you have someone that you know. So in my case, if I do it all over again, I'd have someone who's part of the school system and someone with the trades that I could say, I want to do this, I want to do that, and they could push me about how we can always keep increasing. Right now, I've been bouncing around, and I think we could have gotten a lot more traction, but there just wasn't anyone there that at the time I had the relationships with. So I think the lessons learned is like, you know, when you're doing this, make sure you have, you know, a couple of running buddies that can push you along, and you know, like that, you know, you can have multiple things going on, and you don't have to be the one. Because I had several summer programs going, and I'm going to have it again this summer. and I find myself running to the different ones. It'd be nice to have a running mate. Unfortunately, the district isn't going to pay for it. But it'd be nice if I could partner up with someone in the trades and say, come in and check on our students. And then like that, not only are they checking in on them, but they're building that relationship for when they graduate.
Thanks, Emiliano. And what about for you, Chris? Lessons learned?
Well, I should have started my sustainability action much sooner than what I did. I really didn't initiate that process until this last September. And so my whole effort for the last 6, 7, 8 months is how do I sustain this program? So I run it through an adult ed school in Washington Unified School District. So we participated and got money out of CTIG, out of CDE, for the high school program. So that's good. I also wrote a pathway grant for the Strong Workforce initiative, and we're waiting to hear back on that. So my high school students are good. My adults is another thing. We belong to a large adult ed consortium. We have some adult ed funds that we could use, but I've had to combine 3 to 4 different sources for this next year to sustain both our adults and our high school students. And I guess I should have started much, much earlier, and maybe I should have worked harder with my partners to get funds from them. I'm not sure. It's a question in my own mind. But sustainability, to me, is the most important thing right now for me, because otherwise, come June, even though this grant goes through January, I've got to have a sustainability model for 1 year. You can't run something half a year. So that's where I've been putting my time in, and I wish I had started earlier.
Thanks, Chris. And I think that, really goes back to the advice that we hear from so many programs that your program just began. Well, what's your sustainability plan, right? Before day one. I was wondering, Kathy and Emiliano, if you wanted to talk and share anything about sustainability, since I do think that's such an important topic that Chris has brought up.
Right. Well, as we're coming to the end of our grant funding, sustainability is a big question mark. Right now, we're sort of taking a bit of a reprieve in that we have so many students who have yet to be placed. And so our job right now, we feel, is to help those students with some job placement in the interim. And that was something that we also integrated into our program in the classroom, was really to help students get their head around, hey, when you get out of this program, it doesn't mean you're going to go right into an apprenticeship program. In fact, you might have to wait 6 months or a year for those opportunities to open up. But the unions know you're out there. That certificate that you receive is going to open up some doors for you. Don't get discouraged. But I think that there are funding opportunities available. Obviously, for adult students, we're looking at possibly using Workforce Investment Opportunity Act funds, WIOA funds, and we could certainly run a program very easily. Again, with that partnership with the job centers, we could tap into that kind of funding pretty readily. The funding for the incarcerated students might look a little different. There we might have more challenges keeping that program going up there. But we're again working with the unions right now, with our partner at the Building Trades Council, to look for alternative funding sources and see where it goes. So.
Thank you. Thanks, Kathy. And Emiliano, any words from you about sustainability?
Well, unfortunately, Oakland Unified has been in the news with our financial disaster. But one of the good things that's come out of it is with these wins, they passed the bond measure N, and so that's for pathway development. And so if I build this into a couple of, or 2 or 3 pathways, then there should be funds allocated. And given we've had some wins, someone said we hadn't had any kind of footprint in regards to skilled trades, in Oakland Unified in the last 25 to 30 years. So the fact that we use this grant to do some high leverage work, taking back a shop, getting people into summer boot camps, intro to the trades, we have right now about 4 candidates that are seriously interested in going into the skilled trades this June. So we're getting some traction, and that's actually going to then attract money because the schools have to support it. We also have a major investor that's seriously interested in helping us fully develop it and sustain it, one of the programs, for another 5 to 7 years. And we have another one of our developers who actually adopted one of the schools for the last couple of years on several projects. And so I'm sure that there's going to be some interest in keeping that program going. So again, the grant has, we've got a few hits and, 1 home run. We've got things going, and that has put us on people's radar. And so, 3 years ago, someone said to me, I'm done with OUSD. They never returned any calls, and they didn't have anybody dealing with this aspect of it. And so now that I do have to, unfortunately, we're cutting down on everything. So I have to highlight and promote our own, the wins that we get, and that gets us in front of other individuals who hopefully can keep it running.
Thanks, Emiliano. That is really important, right? Documenting the wins to look for additional ways to sustain your programs. I just want to note, if anyone still has questions, remember to chat them in. I don't see any at this time, but please, we got a couple minutes left. So if you have any questions for our terrific panelists, please chat them in. And so while we're waiting for any questions, though there might not be any, I'd just like to turn actually to the 3 of you, and if you could just share kind of really a closing statement from each of you. And Kathy, let's start with you.
Well, again, we're very proud of the work that we've accomplished so far with this program, and we're grateful for the seed money that we received from the California Apprenticeship Initiative to get things off the ground. I think we've created a replicable model that we can ramp up or down as the need in our area dictates. We know that there's a lot more success stories to come as we start to see more of our students get placed in those apprenticeship jobs. And again, we're trying to track them and follow them and provide them support in the interim. Getting a program like this off the ground is, especially with limited resources, is hard. And I just would say to folks out there, don't get discouraged. It's like the deer in the headlights, facing getting this thing off the ground. I didn't know if it was going to work. Again, with just limited training space and looking at what we had at our hands and our fingertips, the idea of putting 200 students through in a couple of years was very daunting. But we've done it, and know that there are folks out there who are really hungry for this kind of a program. Short-term training for those who are either chronically unemployed or for whatever reasons have barriers to employment can really see some hope in a program like this, in an apprenticeship program. And there's a real role and a place for it, and I think both high schools and community colleges have a real role to play in this, educating folks with even pre-employment skill sets that they can bring to that first job or that entry-level job. Even some of our skills that we're teaching in the pre-apprenticeship program can translate into other small manufacturing type jobs and that sort of thing. So it's given students confidence to go out and get that first job, or that, make that career switch. As I think I mentioned before, the age range of our students has been broad, from young folks all the way to, folks. I've had students in their 40s and 50s who are looking just to change careers or do something different. And there's opportunities certainly in the construction trade for that. And I think that we're going to see more and more of those apprenticeship openings happen and those jobs filled.
Thank you so much, Kathy. And Emiliano, I'll turn to you just for a closing statement.
I too am appreciative of the funding to get this program going. We've been working hard to make it that the skilled trades are not a second choice, which you fall back to. And I think it's important that we lift up all the careers. And so this money allowed us the opportunity to bring it up and highlight it and get me in front of individuals to say, the skilled trades is applied engineering, it's applied science. And so you can't have an engineer and architect without a construction worker, because if it's never built, you're unemployed. And so the reason you do the drawings and you do everything is to actually build the thing out. And I think we've been getting some traction to lift it up. We have now more individuals. I'm happy to say we have more individuals within the district that have some understanding of what the skilled trades and what the careers are in the skilled trades, and that we're making them viable options. And again, a skill set that permeates different areas. We will always need individuals either in skilled trades or agencies such as East Bay Mud and PG&E who can actually do the work. And I think for a long time we've neglected that sector. And so I'm just appreciative of the funds, because now we can show the interconnectedness of the work that we do. And it's not something that you do instead of, it's something that you do because it's what you want to do, whether you're a 2.0 student or a 4.0 student. If this is the kind of work that you enjoy doing, then you should be able to follow your passion.
Terrific. Thanks so much, Emiliano. And Chris, you've got the last word, the closing statement.
Well, I too am very, very thankful for the opportunity to have this funding source, and to see the smiles and jubilation from our adults who have been unemployed, sometimes for months, sometimes for a year, to finally bring home a paycheck and have a smile and to feed themselves as well as their family is satisfaction you just can't believe. Second is to be able to support high school students. Every one of my adults, except for 2 that we've brought into this program, had a high school diploma. That was not what I expected. So I share with these high school students, yes, you're going to get your high school diploma. What are you going to do? Am I going to see you back here in 5 years? Let's start looking at opportunities. Let's start looking at things that really mean something to you. And if you want to go to a community college or a university, that's fine. But if you want to work, let's help you get into that kind of an environment. And let's make sure that your mom, dad, or both, can come with you to one of our apprenticeship schools and see what it's like and see if it's for you. I'm blessed because of the funds. I'm blessed because of all of the support we've received, and the folks from our trades and advisory group have been just marvelous and outstanding. And I'm just very, very pleased to be in the position that we're in today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris, Emiliano, and Kathy, for sharing your lessons learned, your promising practices, and thank you to everyone who joined the webinar today. This has been Laura Aaron with Social Policy Research Associates, and we'll see you next week, next Thursday, for our next CHI webinar. Again, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.